Prime Minister Holness, a promise made, but it was never kept. The truth is, crime is a problem that has marred this society for centuries. We're near 60, almost 60 years old as a politically independent nation. Yet still, we have failed to get it right when it comes on to the issue of crime. Mothers dying, sons killed, grannies, little girls raped, ravished, young men buggered. But yet still, you said, Prime Minister, you said in Montego Bay, when you are Prime Minister of this nation, you will be able to have all citizens being the what? The what, Prime Minister? Then can left them gate and then door open. But the reality is, even in COVID, crime was a big issue. Drive-by shooting, 5 dead, 6 dead. Come on, Prime Minister. Where is the crime plan? Where is the security forces having a systematic solution? Where is the conversation? You're only having a conversation about opposition not supporting state or public emergencies. You're only having a conversation about Zozo, and then Horace Chang is going to say that Zozo is the best crime-fighting solution. But I'm not surprised by Horace Chang utterances because these are early signs of dementia. Early signs of dementia. Prime Minister, we have not gotten it right, but today on Unfiltered, Roger Bent and myself will have this conversation. Where have we gone wrong? Where do we need to speak on? Is it a case that our security forces are under-resourced? Is it a case that they're apathetic? Is it a case that our security personnel are not skilled enough to our criminals? Is it a case that we need to have a fulsome conversation about legitimizing our strongmen or dons in making them district constables? This is Unfiltered, and this is the conversation we're going to have today. Stay tuned. Roger, I remembered in 2015 the Prime Minister said to us, under his government, we will be able to leave our windows and our gates and doors open. Looking back at 2022, Prime Minister Holness, what's your crime plan? Have we ever heard about a serious crime plan outside of state of public emergencies and zones of special operations?
But Andre, we put so much pressure on politicians, to always live up to promises. But that's exactly what they are, promises.
So you're saying he made that promise?
Yes.
That it was just a fairy tale then?
It could be a fairy tale. It could be something that is in his mind, but having
just as how he
in
can't
office,
sleep. Just as how he can't sleep at night.
But having gotten in office, he realized what needs to be done and may have to change the plan. So that's what promises are. They are not concrete, firm in any way. They are wishes and hopes and dreams.
And this is my take on crime. Crime in this country does not need a political response. It needs an apolitical response where it takes a multi-sectoral approach, where government, opposition, private sector, the church, the security forces do a one-up manship and come together, a joined-up approach to fix crime. So you can't come when you're in opposition making silly promises. Tricks are for kids, Prime Minister Holness. Tricks are for kids.
Andre.
It is tricks. Because if it is not tricks, it is cheese tricks.
Andre.
And I don't know what you call it, but it was certainly a political trick.
Andre, can we be reasonable?
And I am being reasonable. That's why I said tricks are for kids, bro God.
It's not reasonable that you're going to put crime at the feet of the Prime Minister and a particular speech.
Yes, but wasn't it unreasonable why then, when Prime Minister Simpson Miller was in power, he made the claim that he will do everything that can make you open your doors and can sleep on your verandas. But in retrospect, Roger, if he was in the position that he's in now, will he say that he's going to make an apology for that political statement? Because it is irresponsible to have uttered that, and now you're going to look on to say criminals can't make you sleep. Criminals can't make you sleep. And further to that, I heard the Justice Minister coming to say, oh, criminals are putting on a show and taking over the country like Putin on Ukraine. Utter rubbish. Utter rubbish. Delroy Chuck, if criminals are taking over Jamaica like Ukraine, the government has failed. The government has failed the people.
The system.
The system has failed the people. And who has failed? Well, our minister, no, let me say, the sleeping Minister of National Security, because every time I see him in the parliament, he's sleeping. Horace Chang.
Many ministers sleep in parliament. Many ministers sleep.
Tell me now. Tell me now.
It's a feature of parliament.
Dr. Horace Chang, it's a feature. The job description didn't ask you to sleep, it asked you to be what? Proactive, not reactive. It asks for you to be what? A worker.
So, Andre.
So Horace Chang, Horace Chang is in one of those constituencies that has been plagued with crime for years. When you look in Montego Bay, Horace Chang rules over one of the constituencies with many dons. You remember Stone Crusher? In the constituency where you had Kevin Smith, it was Horace Chang constituency. And I am going to say that if you are the Minister of National Security and even in your own backyard, you cannot solve crime. How then? How then? Because from my understanding, and you, Roger, being a member of the academia, you have always said that you must create a niche where you govern must be a prototype for the greater society. So if Albion and all those places that he governs can't see a reduction in crime, then how is it that he's the Minister of National Security? He's inept.
Possibly, Andre.
He's sleeping and he needs to go.
Possibly, Andre. We have to now look at the perspective of the establishment.
The establishment of Horace Chang.
Understand that
and then,
crime
I've heard,
is more than a particular location in a particular position. Crime is permeating every aspect of the society.
And you know the funny thing?
The next thing is, the kind of approach that we're ever going to find for crime, I think is gone. The generation, the concept of, I don't know what and I don't know who at this point can come with a solution for crime.
I believe Renita Adams would have been a good solution.
Well, we have to look at the perspective of the establishment. The truth of the matter is, crime is no longer in a particular office and the responsibility of a particular person.
That's true. I wonder why.
The crime that we're looking at now is gotten to such a scope that it is impossible for us to say that we can solve crime.
But, you know, I believe if Renito Fitzgerald, is Fitzgerald, them call him? Renito Valentino Adams. Hey, greetings, Mr. Adams. It's not Adams. Greetings, Mr. Adams. How are you, my boss? I know you're in retirement and you spent 41 years in the police force.
But he didn't leave the police force with such stellar name, as a matter of fact. And consequently, he's also lost his status in the United States. I dare say that this is not a man with a good track record.
But what do you define as a good track record in Jamaica? Because if you're speaking about good track record, you can't speak about good track record and have Horace Chang as a good track record. Because Horace Chang is an inept, what I must call him now? What kind of animals sleep now?
I don't know.
Him look like one of those little.
I would never term the minister.
Sluggish.
I would never term the
minister. Him look very sluggish on the work.
An animal.
I wonder if him can work it. But the truth is, if Renito Adams, even if Renito Adams, in all retrospect and fairness, did his fairness of injustice, but he also did his fairness of good. And in his good, a lot of these criminals did afraid of Renito. When you hear Adams a come, I don't hear nobody in the security force now. When you hear them a come, criminal, what criminal do? Them fire back. Look at Marvally, look at Westport Hills, look at Westmoreland. Yet still, in the zone of special operation or in the state of public emergency, in 2021, 28% increase in a state of public emergency, of crime, Rogers. It means that our criminals have no regard for police officers. Our criminals have become high-tech criminals. When you're not talking about hardcore criminals, you're talking about cyber crime. You're talking about what else, Roger? You're talking about some serious bullyism in cyber world where them take the old people their money. And then you're going to talk about not having people like Adams. And I'm going to say to you, we're going to use Moses' law on these criminals, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, because through them have human rights.
Exactly.
Because them have human rights. Now, hear the established one.
The human rights of any individual. We have to believe we can't be the kind of state that stoop to the level of criminals.
But you see,
we don't treat criminals by applying criminal tactics.
But if the Minister of Justice, Delroy Chuck, can say that the criminals have invoked themselves on the nation just as Putin on Ukraine, how did Ukraine respond? They were resolute. They have not given up. They have not surrendered. So it is for the government, it's for the security forces, it's for the justice system, it's for what else? The JDF. It is for who else? The JCF. It's for an anti-task crime force who must respond with what? You must respond if a dirt, if a gun, a gun.
Absolutely
because
not.
Criminal have gotten it wrong. Boo, 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 boo.
Absolutely.
Boo, 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 boo. Everywhere you look, boo, boo, boo. You
Absolutely
recognize
not.
them said the students in Ukraine have become immune. Our Jamaican students will have become so immune to the gunshots.
Absolutely.
You know what that means, Roger?
I will not be party to this kind of narrative. You're actually creating this a state.
But the state is already failing.
Lawlessness.
The state has already. All right. You know what I'm going to say to you? If we don't put them, and we don't respond to that, I believe the influential leaders must be held accountable. If it is that you're seen that as you're the strong man for this era, you should become the deputy district constable.
Are you serious?
Of course.
So you don't want to legitimize dons?
Legitimize them if they.
What is next?
If you legitimize the dons, it's a simple mean that they'll be held accountable for every crime in the community. Have you ever considered that?
I wouldn't want to legitimize a don. I wouldn't.
So what
I've
are
never
you going
thought
to do?
about it. Never dreamed about it. Never fantasized about it.
So then, if you can't legitimize them, then you're going to take them down. And if you can't take them down, it means that anarchical structures will continue in the society. So therefore, in my estimation, and in this view, I believe many other Jamaicans, you know the funny thing? Many ordinary Jamaicans feel more comfortable going to the Don than the police. It's the truth, Roger. So if it means that they feel going to the Dons is the way to go, have the Dons a part of the justice and the criminal system that fights and eradicate crime. Because many of these Dons, they don't do criminal activities that them kill people. Them actually do what? Govern, extortion, putting things in place to do what? To make their business work. So many of them are businessmen before they're gunmen. So therefore,
they're gunmen.
Alright, they're gunmen.
They're contract killers and extortioners.
Oh, but if Delroy Chuck is saying, I want you to use the line of argument from Delroy Chuck, you know. Delroy Chuck is saying that the criminals have invoked themselves on the people like Putin, on the people of Ukraine. It would have been better. Just as what is happening in Istanbul right now. The Ukrainian government is negotiating with the Russian government. We need to have a negotiation. Let us take, for instance, how did crime reduce in New York in the early 90s? It is said that it's Governor Giuliani name or
Giuliani.
Governor Giuliani, Roger. Governor Giuliani said crime was too high in New York. And he went on a systematic, encrypted, coerced system that was organized, that he called in the mafias and he had a conversation with them. And over 10, 15 years, there was a serious reduction in crime. I'm not saying legitimize our dons. I am saying have a conversation with them. If it is that I know that I'm from Trenchtown and I'm the strong man there, Call in that strong man and give him some terminologies and a task. Ask that man to do these things. And if these things are done within a time frame, he's compensated for the betterment of the community. Rather than being a contract killer, Roger, you're legitimizing them into a fair trade job. Crime is money. Crime is paid for. Therefore, you take the incentive of crime and you make them public servants. And in making them public servants, Roger, I believe we can have a fulsome conversation about a true reduction in crime. I don't want men to be killed and to be savagely done by how Renito did it in years gone by. No, we want to have a conversation about having a conversation with the people. Still, seeing them as what, Roger? Human beings, not as savages. Seeing them as being a part of a conversation of being winner city communities and not losing communities. I want a country where Jamaica is free of crime. And Roger, one of the solutions that I'm calling for, is for strong men, influential leaders to be seen as a part of the conversation to reduce crime and violence. We're going to look at these clips, and these clips will support the argument that we need to do more for crime. Look at this clip.
Up first, Prime Minister Andrew Holness continues to defend the use of states of emergency SOEs as a means to reduce the crime across the island. Speaking in Westmoreland on Thursday, Mr. Holness stressed that the measure is warranted as the island is facing a crime crisis.
There has been rampant debate about the use of states of emergency SOEs as a crime-fighting tool. The opposition brought the matter to court with a ruling handed down in 2018 by Justice Bertram Morrison. But with over 1,000 murders per year, Prime Minister Andrew Holness says the measure is warranted to deal with the rampant acts of criminality as it cannot be looked on as normal.
It cannot be considered normal that Jamaica is in the top 5 countries for homicide rates in the world. We cannot consider it normal that young men can take a car, drive furtively along a road, roll down their windows, and spray a street corner of innocent civilians.
Mr. Holness, who was speaking at the groundbreaking ceremony for the Little London Police Station in Westmoreland on Thursday, said too often politics has played a major role in important decisions.
We have an emergency, and I believe that notice should be taken of this, both by the opposition, both by the judiciary, and certainly the government has taken notice of it, that we have an emergency, and we need to be able to use emergency powers to address it.
Minister of Legal and Constitutional Affairs, Marlene Malahoo Fort, at the Standing Finance Committee meeting on March 3, listed a review of the Emergency Powers Act, including the use of states of emergency, as a priority for her ministry this year.
Can we consider it normal that a government, after 5 years, sees it fit to only use state of public emergencies as their crime-fighting strategy? Roger, after so many years, you're going to tell me that a government sees it normal to use state of public emergencies to fight crime. And the last time that the state of public emergency was imposed last year in Westmoreland, you remember the tripod where they had Westmoreland, Hanover, and St. James? State of public emergencies, crime raised by 23% during that time, just in those 3 parishes. What is your take on public emergencies, state of public emergencies? Do you think the government has really failed? I believe they have failed to seeing state of public emergencies as their way out.
I applaud the boldness of government at this time to keep on trajectory with something that they believe will have a long-term impact on how crime is going to be managed and governed and and dealt with in the country. We can't expect something like crime that is so ingrained in the system of Jamaica for 5 years to be a solution. It's the beginning. But I love the fact that there is an emphasis, one, on, yes, security, but two, on some social kind of development in the back end.
What social kind of development? What is the government? What is the social? What is the social kind of ills that they're fighting? Have you seen our government doing anything significant to push and to inject capital in terms of economic livelihood and social capital for youth who are involved in the life of crime? Where do you see that? I'm not seeing that, Roger.
I cannot pinpoint exactly.
You can't pinpoint, and just like the government, you can't pinpoint and find a solution for crime. You can't pinpoint and find where the criminals are and put. Let me say something to you. I find it strange that every time a state of public emergency is going to happen this island, criminals migrate. Who informed the criminals about these state of public emergencies? I believe the same government and politicians who are speaking about, oh, they want to fight this issue of crime. They have empowered criminals over the years. They have given them the tools over the years. They have aided them. So what are you going to find? The monster cannot be fixed in 5 years. And then what I am saying, you're going to say it should fix it will take a long time. We should see signs of it taking or improving, Roger. For 5 years, you're going to tell me there's not even a 2% reduction in crime?
In some areas where these occurrences are, where we do implement some kind of restriction, we do find that there is a reduction.
Where are the reductions?
Even when there is no reduction, there is an uptake in the amount of guns and other kinds of weaponry that we find. That is a good sign.
Where is the evidence, Roger, of this reduction?
Andre, I didn't know that we were coming with evidence upon evidence. I thought we were having a discussion on reason.
Well, the discussion of reason must be one that we should be seeing the evidence of crime reduction. We're saying the argument of the government is that through state of public emergencies that they'll be able to control crime. And the narrative that has been painted over the past 5 to 6 years is that in these institutions that they say they're going to use state of public emergencies, use Zozo. Remember, Horace Chang said Zozo is one of the best security tools that has ever been introduced to this country. But yet still, we have seen major crimes gone up. We have seen shooting gone up. We have seen looting gone up. So my point is, if there is no reduction in crime using state of public emergencies, why continue with it? Now, Jamaica, let us look at this clip that speaks to our murder rate.
Up first this evening, we zoom in on the country's crime problem, the extent of the country's ballooning crime problem, that is. Now, it's understood that Cabinet was briefed today on the crime situation. Police Commissioner Major General Anthony Anderson and the Chief of Defense Staff, Rear Admiral Antoinette Weems-Gorman, made presentations. Now, the crime figures from the Jamaica Constabulary Force show murders up by 15.5%, with one parish recording as high as a 500% increase in homicides. The gravity of the crime wave since the start of 2022 was confirmed in the JCF's year-to-date serious crimes report, which compared crime numbers for January 1 to 23 this and last year. Of the 19 police divisions, 12 have recorded the same or more murders compared to the same period in 2021. Topping the list, Westmoreland. The division has seen a 500% increase in homicides, with 12 murders compared to 2 during the corresponding period last year. A zone of special operations was declared in parts of the division on January 16. Police Commissioner Major General Anthony Anderson said it was warranted based on last year's killings.
For 2021, Westmoreland accounted for 128 murders, an increase of 60% when compared to the corresponding period of 2020, which is the fourth highest number of murders recorded among all police divisions.
But since then, the murders have continued in other sections of the parish. The St. Catherine South Division has the second largest percentage increase, 175%, with 11 killings compared to 4 last year. But the St. James Division has the highest number of murders, overall 21. Trelawney recorded 3 killings, 2 more than last year, while Hanover has seen 2, 1 more than the corresponding period last year. The Kingston Eastern Division has seen a 50% increase in killings so far this year, moving from 6 murders over the period in 2021 to 9 this year. The Kingston Central Division, where Azoso was also set up in some parts this month, has recorded the same number of killings, 7 for the period in both years.
Having watched that video, it leaves me in a state of pain and agony for a country. Murders, crime up by 15.5%. Yet still, there's no crime plan. Yet still, in my opinion, I've always put forward this notion that influential men and women in communities must be a part of the crime reduction strategy. Roger, what's your take on that?
But Andre, I would caution your embrace of the statistical apparatus because we know that sometimes statistics as presented by media and other interests are not always true, right? If you talk to some interests, for example, people within the communities, they will tell you that they feel safer. They will tell you that the presence of the military and the police in their communities have made them feel more able to sleep at nights. So, I hear the statistics, but then when you talk to real life people in these real life circumstances, we're hearing different
But
views.
then, when I speak to real life people, as you are purporting, they're always also saying that they feel safer with the dons being around than the police. What's your take on that? And I am saying, Jamaica, if you are having a crime reduction strategy, those who are influential people should be held accountable in reducing crime. Governor Giuliani did it in New York. If he could have done it in New York, where dons and mafias were carried in and assisted in reducing crime in New York, why is the state not embracing this strategy in which they use strongmen to reduce crime?
I hear you. And to the extent that you're suggesting that we have tried all else and this may be the only
everything
option,
else has failed.
I'm saying we have not reached that stage yet.
So
We have not reached the stage where we are going to give legitimacy to criminals. We have not reached that stage yet, and by God, I hope in my lifetime
I am saying it's not giving them legitimacy, but you're putting them a part of the formal system where they encourage the reporting of criminal activities, where they're paid to be a part of the criminal undertaking of pulling down the infrastructure of criminality. You don't think it can work? If it happened in New York and it worked, why can't we embrace it? Why can't we embrace it when we have embraced so many other apparatus and it has not worked? Why then can't Jamaica embrace the reality then? That if we hold dons accountable, we have the strong probability of seeing a reduction in crime. You don't see it. So Jamaica, that's one thing that I want us to discuss and looking further. If dons play a part in crime reduction strategies, will we see a reduction in crime? Look at this third clip that speaks to the economy and the impact crime has had on our economy.
The opposition is again urging the government to urgently address the country's high crime rate. Opposition leader Mark Golding was speaking at the final day of the Jamaica Stock Exchange's regional conference on Thursday. Now here's O'Shane Masters with that story.
The impact of crime on the economy is well known. In addition to the hefty bill to fight crime, successive governments have had to deal with issues like loss of foreign investment. Then there are concerns about the loss of business due to the prevalence of extortion and theft. Opposition leader Mark Golding says if the country's crime problem isn't controlled, the hopes of having any real growth in the economy is only a pipe dream.
It is a deep and complex problem which requires a multifaceted response. We accept that in dealing with communities which are torn by gang warfare, where violence is out of control, The state's response must be strong, rapid, and effective.
He maintains that the answer lies with the passing of two pieces of legislation, the Enhanced Security Measures Act and the Firearms Act.
Given the depth and depravity of our crime problem, it is, in my opinion, inexcusable that there has been this protracted delay in delivering these agreed commitments to help the country try and get on top of this crime problem. It is clear that more effective law enforcement is only a part of the solution to achieving the normalization of Jamaica's crime levels. For a complete solution, we need to comprehensively address the factors which lead to the high levels of violence in our society. Those factors are, for the most part, the deep social and cultural challenges that reinforce the high levels of inequality in our society and entrench intergenerational poverty.
It's why he's calling for greater focus on human development to reap the benefits of economic growth.
We must invest in our people to grow our human capital and transform national productivity so that our economy can attract investment and compete with the best and the rest of the world.
So Mr. Golding's perspective is invest in our people. I believe that is a very good argument.
Very good argument.
But then, are our politicians investing in their constituencies? What are the investments? There are arguments that politicians for years have invested in the life of crime, where they have empowered criminals. So for Mr. Golding to put forward the argument to invest in our people, is the investment criminality or is the investment legitimacy of empowering Jamaicans?
I hear him on a point that I support. It's one, it's narrowing this inequality gap. It's actually building the resource within our people. Those two things I think are powerful statements. It's something that politicians need to acknowledge, even if we have not acknowledged in those ways in the past. We needed to acknowledge it now. That's a start. How do we move forward with that is also going to be determined on government and the will of people too.
So the truth be told, we will have generational poverty increasing if we don't empower the life of our citizens. But the issue of crime, yes, the truth is, we have had a discussion where we have said truthfully that many Jamaicans have been bothered by it. It has bothered our economy, but we need to do more. And the more is equipping the security forces, equipping our communities with the economic and social livelihood to keep them busy out of a life of crime. But equally, Jamaica, in doing all of that, the Jamaican citizenry need to play their part. Many of you know the criminals. Many of you are aided by the criminals.
Yes.
Many of you know the scamming and the looting that is happening. And you have never done your part in helping and aiding the government to fight this life of crime. And when it comes to the door, when it come and a picnic involved and family member get shook up and dead, then you hear, government never do this. You know for years. How many of you in Westmoreland in particular? Westmoreland was a peaceful parish, very peaceful parish, and over the years the life of crime and scamming has turned that country around, that parish around, to a parish that now has the highest crime rate in our land. Jamaica, we need to do more. We need to report the issues. We need to play our part to reduce this social monster that has evaded us and has robbed us of a trueness that we need, which is peace and harmony to carry true economic growth to Jamaica. Stay tuned, Jamaica, and I will continue on Unfiltered. We can all conclude that we're not safe in this country. We don't know the time, the hour, or the minute that one of us will be gunned down. We have seen it right across our nation. Many drive-by shootings, prominent entertainers being killed, and it's a call for concern. We had a conversation today that I've championed the cause for dons and strongmen and influential community leaders to be a part of the crime fighting solution. For years, we have not gotten it right. For years, Jamaica has not gotten it right. For years, the police has gotten it wrong. For years upon years, we have seen a serious increase in what? Crime. Major crimes. Raping, shooting, murders. So if the police not getting it right, why don't we open up the scope and the boundaries to carry these men to join the crime fighting and reduction in crime? Roger, you might say they're criminals. Others might disagree with me. But why not we test this hypothesis to see whether or not this hypothesis has validity? Let us test whether or not even if we don't want to give criminals, as you say, or influential men and women, statuses to be a part of the crime fighting strategies. Let us take 5 communities that are prone to crime and violence, and let us see that if these strong men and women are involved in the crime fighting strategies over a 3 to 4, 5 year period, what are the results? If the prototype works, then it begs the question, have we been sleeping? Are we having political dementia as mentioned earlier? Or is it a case that we're going to be a force that despite knocking up or walking up or going to a wall and the wall is saying no, it can't work, you're going to be licking the wall? I will say let us change the script. And the script is what? Fighting crime with the inclusion of strong men. Fighting for a better and safer Jamaica. This is Unfiltered, and I am Andre Stevens. Walk good.